Some people would say that the way of the samurai is one of honor, but today's deck is one that lacks a little bit of honor because we are doing an Infect deck. I'm talking about none other than Jin Sakai, Ghost of Tsushima. So I think this one was a bit of a polarizing commander when it came out. And I say when it came out because it's a secret lair. So when it was released, this was probably the most sought after one. And I was very lucky to be able to attain one for myself. Ghost of Tsushima is an Esper commander, a human samurai 2/4 that says whenever Jin Sakai deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Whenever a creature you control attacks a player, if no other creatures are attacking that player, choose one. Either Standoff, where that creature gains a double strike until end of turn, or Ghost, and it can't be blocked this turn. I remember reading this and thinking to myself, this is a cool commander, it does a lot of things, it's per player, so I'm getting to choose one thing per player, which is really great in a game. And then I realized there's a way to do this that might make this a pretty competitive deck, and a bit of a nasty one at that, and it's to make this an Infect deck. So that's pretty much what I did. I made an Infect deck that allows me to attack each player with unblockable creatures. This deck is definitely one of my nastier decks. It does win quite quickly. I don't think there are any game changes in here off the top of my head. If there are any game changes, I'll make sure to put them in the video as I go, but I don't think there are any, but it's still actually a really nasty deck to play against. It can win quite quickly with the amount of Proliferate and Infect that I'm running. And there's a few ways to essentially just knock someone out of the game quite quickly. So let's take a look. Let's start with the Dave changes, which again, if this is your first time here, also, hello, I'm Dave. Welcome to Quest for the Weekend. We do deck techs here, and I discuss the decks that I've built and played over time. So they're not just theory-crafted decks, but actually played and lived-in decks. But Dave changes are sort of the cards, my top picks for this commander out of the cards that I've been using. What I think really make the commander sing, and or what are really indicative of what makes the deck tick. With that in mind, let's get into it. It's Kamiz Obscura Oculus. Now this is also sort of a swap out commander if I want to, but it does say whenever you attack, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. It connives, choose another attacking creature with lesser power, and that creature gains double strike. So this actually does almost the identical thing to Jin Sakai, but just a little bit less. It's sort of either or, but it means if I have them both on the field, I can sort of do both. I can give two things, double strike, and I can give two things unblockable. So it's pretty strong card in that regard. Next up, we've got Unstoppable Slasher. This is a 3-drop zombie 2/3 with Death Touch. Whenever Unstoppable Slasher deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. When the Unstoppable Slasher dies, if it had no counters on it, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with 2 stun counters on it. So this is a creature that could essentially never go away if I don't kill it a second time when it's got the stun counters on it. But also it's something they give unblockable and they lose half their life. Next up is just, it's not specifically this card, but there's a few cards like this. Any of the cards that give a creature Infect work wonders in this deck, particularly when you can pop it on Jin Sakai himself. But that Unstoppable Slasher, whichever one it is, right? It's just giving it a non-Infect creature Infect. Next up, we have a really nasty one. It's Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon, 5 mana, 4/4, Phyrexian Dragon Skeleton. It's flying and Infect. It has pay 1, and Skithiryx or Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon, gains haste until end of turn, or 2 black mana regenerate Skithiryx, or Skithiryx, depending on how you look at it. This is one of the best Infect, creatures out there. I think with the regenerate, it means it's probably going to stick around. Plus, it's flying and it can have haste. Pretty strong. Here's another one of the best creatures in the deck. It's Chameleon, Master of Disguise. He is all of the creatures and none of the creatures at the same time. With this, he can be Jin Sakai, and again, I get 2 of the same trigger. He could be Skithiryx or whatever. Any of the creatures, because he retains his own name, but he gets all the abilities. It's a really, really strong card from Spider-Man, and probably one of the best out of that set, if I'm being totally honest. Next up, we've got Vorpal Sword. It's a 1-drop artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has Death Touch, but you can equip it for 2 black, and it has a pay for 8 mana. Until end of turn, Vorpal Sword gains whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. So with the right amount of mana and my commander on the field, this can just knock a player out because they make them unblockable. Very, very strong equipment. And last but not least, we have probably the nastiest card there is in this deck anyway. It's Hatred. It's a 5 mana instant that says pay X life and target creature gets +X/+0 until end of turn. This essentially just does the job. It kills a player if I want to sack a bunch of life to do it. If I do it with my commander, I can sack just a little bit to kill someone with commander damage because he's unblockable. If he's got Infect, I only need to sack 10 life, and it's probably unblockable too, and it's just going to kill you. Really, really strong card. Probably the most expensive card in the deck, I would say. But that is all the Dave changes. So I really, I think you probably understand what's coming. It's a lot of pretty gross creatures that when they do damage, they do something nasty, or they're just infecting you, and we're proliferating from that. So without further ado, let us do the remainder of the cards. I'm going to stick with the other permanents this time first, because that is actually the biggest chunk. Which is enchantments, equipment, that kind of thing. Spider-Man No More. 2 mana enchant creature. Enchanted creature is a citizen with base power toughness 1/1. It has defender and loses all other types. This is just a way to remove a creature from the board, particularly ones that are indestructible. Just sort of removes a problem from the field. Contagion Engine. It's an artifact. It costs 6. When it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature target player controls, but it has pay 4, tap, and proliferate twice. This nets me a lot of additional infect poison counters. Trailblazer Boots. 2 mana, equipped for 2. Equipped creature has non-basic land walk. Just makes another thing unblockable. So, if I lose the commander for whatever reason, it's another way to get something through. Duelist's Heritage. Redundancy for the Jin Sakai ability. So this allows me to give a target attacking creature double strike. So if I give it unblockable with Jin Sakai's ability, then I give it double strike with this. I get both effects for the price of 1. Vraska, Betrayal's Sting. This is a 6 mana planeswalker. It's got 0, draw card, I lose a life, and proliferate. So really it's just about that to get the infect counters higher. But it also has -2, target creature becomes a treasure. So it removes something pretty gross from the battlefield too, and forces them to have to sack it. And -9, if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. So this can essentially pump someone straight up to 9 counters, and then I'm really just proliferating one more time and it can kill them. So I've never done that -9, but I definitely have done the 0 to draw, lose a life, and proliferate all the time. Righteous Authority. This is an enchantment aura. It's a 5 mana enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each card in its controller's hand. And at the beginning of your end step, beginning of your draw step, enchanted creature's controller draws an additional card. It's worded very strangely, but essentially I get an additional card draw at the beginning of my draw. Plus it gets +1/+1 for each card in my hand. These kinds of things where I can only really attack with 1 creature per player. Having good enchantments on those creatures helps. So this isn't a very wide deck. It's actually quite narrow and tall, if that makes sense. So it's tall because I'm making the creatures bigger rather than having a lot of creatures on the field at the same time. So I really only need 3 creatures, Jin Sakai and 2 others, and I'm sort of making them bigger so that I can swing through and they can all be unblockable or all have double strike depending on what's happening. Defense Grid, a 2 mana artifact, and it says each spell costs 3 more to cast except during its controller's turn. So this stops people from fiddling around in my turn, I suppose, and destroying things when I'm attacking. It sort of puts a little extra added layer of protection. It's come up once or twice that it's definitely saved me a creature or two from being destroyed, so I recommend this when your creatures are quite valuable like they are in this deck. Mask of Memory, 2 mana, equip for 1. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw 2 cards. If I do, discard a card. It's just a way for some additional draw. And I should also mention, because I'm always hitting because they're unblockable, I usually get the effect. Phyrexian Scriptures is a 4 mana saga, so an enchantment. Stage 1 is put a 1/1 counter on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its own other types, which is usually Jin Sakai. Then it's destroy all non-artifact creatures. So saves the one I've put the counter on, destroys everything else. And then step 3, exile all opponents' graveyards. That doesn't really matter. Whisper Silk Cloak, 3 mana, 2 equip. Equipped creature is unblockable and has Shroud. Ancestral Katana. This is quite good in this deck. It's 2 mana equipment. It says whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, if you pay 1, I can equip this to it. It gives +2/+1, or it's equipped for 3. But because Jin Sakai is a samurai, and there's a few other warriors and samurai in this deck, they sort of get that for 1 mana, which is quite good. It's good pump, particularly when there's just one creature going through and they have Infect. Hero's Blade, same sort of thing. It's a 2 mana, equipped for 4. It says equipped creature gets +3/+2, but it says whenever a legendary creature you control enters, I can attach this equipment to it. So having this on the field quite early is great. Jin Sakai comes in, this automatically attaches. Win-win. Idolized, interesting card. 2 mana enchantment, an enchant creature, and it says enchant creature has whenever this creature attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of non-land permanents you control. So this sort of stops me from attacking multiple players, but it's likely to kill that player depending on what is going on with that creature. So very, very strong card, I think, particularly in this deck. Over Encumbered, 2 mana. Enchantment. It says enchant opponent. When over encumbered enters the battlefield, enchanted opponent creates a clue, a food, and a junk token. At the beginning of combat on enchanted opponent's turn, that player may pay 1 for each artifact they control. If they don't, creatures can't attack that combat. I think this is a really good card. I think it's a little overlooked. In a deck where somebody has a bunch of artifacts, this is going to essentially paralyze them from attacking. They need to be saving a lot of mana to be able to get through this effect. Or they're going to find a way to get rid of some of their artifacts to be able to make it work. So somebody with a bunch of treasure tokens, this is essentially making them, null and void. They've got to pay 1 for each treasure they have to be able to attack. Depending on what they're doing, obviously, it doesn't always work, but I think it's a cool card. And I'd like to play it some more in some other decks too. Angelic Destiny, it's a 4 mana enchantment. It says enchanted creature. It gets +4/+4, has flying, first strike, and is an angel in addition to its other types. And when enchanted creature dies, return this to my hand. So again, nice cheap way. Really good rate on this. 4 mana for +4/+4 and flying and first strike. Really, really great way to get some damage through. Archaeomancer's Map for a bit of ramp. It just says it's an artifact. When Archaeomancer's Map enters the battlefield, search my library for up to 2 basic planes, reveal them, put them in my hand, then shuffle. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player controls more lands than me, I may put a land from my hand onto the battlefield. Remembering that every time one of my creatures whenever Jin Sakai deals damage to another player, he could potentially have double strike. I'm drawing 2 cards per strike. So I generally do have a few lands to play out, which is really helpful. Glistening Oil, 2 black, enchanted creature has Infect. This does kill the creature after a while, unfortunately, with this card. So it says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on enchanted creature, and when this is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, it bounces back to my hand. Again, another way to give Infect, but this one is repeatable. Even though I lose a creature, I save the enchantment. Depending on what's going on, there are right places to play this and wrong places to play this, I would say. Bident of Thassa, 4 mana, legendary enchantment artifact. It says whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, I may draw a card. It's essentially Jin Sakai's effect, but for the other creatures. He's giving some of them unblockable, so that comes out in the wash. And last but not least, Darksteel Plate, 3 mana, equipped for 2, indestructible, and equipped creature has indestructible. Really helpful when you have such a high value target commander like Jin Sakai. Cool, that is all the other permanents. Let's go into the creatures. which is the next chunk on this deck. Not so many, to be honest. But again, I don't need too many creatures. It's sort of, I've got 3 on the field at once because I can attack 1 to each opponent if I want to make use of Jin Sakai's effect. Okay, Tekethal, Inquiry Dominus, 4 mana for a 3/5 with flying. If I would proliferate twice instead. Really helpful in Infect decks. Selfless Samurai, 2 mana for a 2/2. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, it gains lifelink until end of turn. And it also has Sack Selfless Samurai, another target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So I really like this. Combos quite well with Jin Sakai's ability, but also lets me save Jin Sakai if I need to. Baleful Strix, 2 mana, flying, death touch. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. Simple, great. In Esper, you're definitely playing this card. Jawbone Duelist, 2 mana for a double strike Toxic 1. So again, Toxic is a newer version of Poison, which actually does the damage from combat, and then they get X number of poison counters equal to the toxic number that they have. So in this instance, it has double strike. It doesn't deal 2. It does deal 2 damage and 2 poison counters. So quite a good attacker. But again, anytime where I can remove one of the options like double strike or unblockable, I can choose the other one with Jin Sakai. So I find that to be quite helpful. Voidwing Hybrid, 2 mana, flying, toxic 1. When you proliferate, return this from my graveyard to my hand. There's a few different proliferate effects in here, so if I lose this creature, I can get it back. It's also a 2/1, that's dealing some good infect damage. Viral Drake, 4 mana for a 1/4 with flying. It has infect itself, but it also has on it pay 4 to proliferate. So if I get through some damage, some poison counters, I can proliferate quite easily with that. Sheoldred's Head Cleaver, 4 mana for a menace, Toxic 2, 2/4. It doesn't have anything else, but again, Menace on top of double strike is really great. I would only usually give this one double strike because the unblockable and Menace sort of rule each other out. Maybe I do. It depends on what's happening, I suppose, on the field. But with Toxic 2, it's a good hitter. That's for sure. Hand of the Praetors, 4 mana for a zombie, 3/2. It has Infect. Other creatures you control with Infect get +1/+1. And whenever you cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. It's a little unfortunate. I don't have as many of the Infect creatures that I would like. So I do need to up the count now that I've got this. This is a more recent addition. So I might be swapping out some of these creatures with Toxic with ones that just have Infect to make a little better use of this. But still very strong card because it says whenever I cast a creature spell with Infect, target player gets a poison counter. That could be doubling up, by some of the other creatures I've got. I'm giving you a poison counter to start, and then we're getting straight to business. Stinging Hivemaster, 3 mana for a 3/2 with Toxic 1. When Stinging Hivemaster dies, create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. A bit of redundancy, a nice toxic creature. It's not a bad one. Duelist of the Deep Faith, 2 mana for a 2/2 with Toxic 1. As long as it's my turn, Duelist of the Deep Faith has First Strike. So again, another one of those ones where it's got this great ability of First Strike. Giving it, double strike is really helpful in this situation. Phyrexian Crusader, 3 mana for a 2/2 with First Strike, protection from red and white, and Infect. Pretty simple. Could attack a player that they can't block, and then I just give a double strike and we're off to the races. Psychosis Crawler, 5 mana for a Phyrexian Horror. When this creature's power and toughness, are equal to the number of cards in my hand. I'm drawing a few cards from Jin Sakai, so that's helpful. And whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Nimraiser Paladin, 5 mana for a 4/4 with Toxic 2. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to my hand. A little bit of recursion. If you've noticed, a lot of the creatures here are quite low cost because I want to be able to cast them and still do some of the other stuff that I showed you in the other pile, like playing an equipment or equipping something, so that's quite good to have them low cost. Silent Hall Creeper, I really like this creature. I don't see this played very often, but it's a enchantment creature, horror, 2 mana for a 1/1. It can't be blocked. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. And so if you choose this in the right order, you get all of them for over 3 turns. Put 2 1/1 counters on Silent Hall Creeper. Second one is draw a card, and the last one is Silent Hall Creeper becomes a copy of another target creature you control. So any one of the other nice infects, or anything that's a good target on the field at the moment that's working for you, this can become that. Plus it will have 2 counters on it as well, and could potentially do some other stuff depending on what you choose. Flux Channeler, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Proliferate. Very simple, very easy, poison your friends. So that's actually all the creatures. It's not, like I said, not many, but we don't need too many, and we've got a little bit of recursion going on. And if this game lasts for too long, I'm probably going to lose. So it's geared around doing it quite quickly, or as quickly as we can. Last but not least, we have instants and sorceries. Probably the smallest pile. But still some really strong ones in here. So Snuff Out for 4. It does say if you control a swamp, I can pay 4 life rather than paying this spell's mana cost. Destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Removing a blocker means that I might be able to give something double strike, so that always works. Read the Bones, 3 mana for a sorcery. Scry 2, then draw 2, then lose 2 life. Vindicate for 3. It's a sorcery, just says destroy target permanent. Return to Dust, 4 mana for an instant, exile target artifact or enchantment, and if I cast it during my main phase, I may exile up to 1 other target artifact or enchantment. So potentially 2. You've probably seen this plenty of times in the past. 6 mana, Cloud Kill, sorcery. All creatures get neg-X until end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. This should be Toxic Deluge, but I don't have another one. But this helps a little bit. It's 6 mana for neg-4, so it can do quite a good amount of work. Rad Storm, 4 mana instant that just has Storm. But it's Storm and Proliferate, so depending on what I've cast for the rest of the turn, again, you can see the cost of a lot of these things are quite low. I could get 2, 3, 4 Proliferate triggers off of this, depending on what I've played that turn. Really strong. Prologue to Phyresis, 2 mana instant. Each opponent gets a poison counter, and I draw a card. Path to Exile, but this is the Secret Lair one, which is really nice. Riot Control. I gain 1 life for each creature my opponents control. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to me this turn. It's just a nice little way to protect yourself, and potentially gain some life back. Swords to Plowshares. Generous Gift, 3 mana instant, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green elephant creature token. Ghostly Flicker, 3 mana instant, exile 2 target artifacts, creatures, and lands, then return them to the battlefield under my control. This is a way to stop them from dying. So when somebody's going to target one of the creatures, because they're quite high value, like I said, I want to save them, so we blink them to essentially nullify them as a target. Despark for 2 mana, exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. And last is Merciless Eviction, 6 mana. This should be Farewell, but I also don't have another one. 6 mana, choose 1, exile all artifacts, all creatures, all planeswalkers, or all enchantments. Again, not as good as Farewell. In fact, strictly worse than Farewell, but I don't have another Farewell. That's actually it. That's the Jin Sakai deck. You might notice I've taken out the showing you guys the artifacts and the mana rocks and stuff like that they're not so interesting. I think this has probably streamlined it a little bit for me as well, which is quite nice. But that is my Jin Sakai deck. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Do you have any ideas that might work for this deck? It's still quite underplayed compared to some of the other ones. You could probably tell by the kinds of cards that are in there, that I was building this around the time Spider-Man was releasing, and so it's a few of those Spider-Man cards in there as well, which I always find funny looking back on decks and you're like, oh, I remember the time I was building this because there are cards from that set in it. But otherwise, this commander is quite strong. If it's allowed to get away with what it does, it's going to likely kill at least 2 people with Infect, and I may struggle with the last one depending on what's happening. It's quite vulnerable to targeted removal, which is why we have so many ways to protect the creatures, and we have so few creatures that we want to make sure that we can do it. So, I mean, the deck itself works quite well. If you've built Jin Sakai, I'd love to hear about some of the ways you made this tick. What sort of pathway did you go down? I haven't seen anybody talking about Infect Jin Sakai before, but it's the way that I went, and I do enjoy it. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, please make sure you hit like, subscribe, and share the video with someone if you thought this was great. I really appreciate all the support I've gotten so far. It's been a great time making these, and hopefully you've enjoyed my tech upgrades. We've got some fun things coming up soon for the channel, so I'm looking forward to it. But until next time, peace.